Hey everyone, and welcome. We'll just give it a minute or so more to let to just give everyone a little bit of time to all come in. But just while we're waiting, I'd love to hear where people are joining us from. Jamie and I, who are the presenters, are up late at night here in Sydney, so 11 p.m. our time. We ran this earlier on this morning our time, and there was a number from the States. So I'd love to hear. I can see some familiar faces from the UK, but where's everybody calling in from? Also Sydney. Oh, good on you, Ali. All right, so those in the UK still, otherwise it's not even that early, so everybody should have had their copies and everything. But anyway, Toronto, welcome, Colin. Good to see you. Cool. Well, listen, we as I said, we ran this, Jamie and I, earlier on today our time, and it ran for about 40 to 45 minutes, including the questions at the end. So just to give you an idea, we would love this to be as interactive as possible. So if you spot anything you have questions on, or just either queries or anything as we go, just pop them into the chat in Zoom. And we'll either try to address them then, if it makes sense to weave it in, or there's going to be some time at the end towards it. But there's hopefully going to be a couple of really key nuggets that just from our joint experience as we go through it, that hopefully you can apply and sort of think about in your own worlds. So I'll kick off into it, and just by way of introduction, my name's Adam, and I'm one of the co-founders of a company called CloudOlive, and I actually worked at an MSP once upon a time, sort of second job out of uni, and then the next job after that was about 10 years working with Autotask and Datto at the end when they merged or took us over, and just one of the problem areas that I saw while at the MSP, and then certainly hundreds and hundreds of our partners at Autotask would often just ask us, so how does everybody else manage the license fluctuations across all the suppliers every single month? Everybody has this problem. Surely there must be a succinct answer you can provide. And we just never had an answer to that problem for years and years and years while I was at Autotask. So my co-founder and I set out to solve that very broad problem somewhat 4 years ago. And we've learned a huge amount now around why month-end billing's complex, why the challenges exist, what the revenue leakage typically looks like, and most importantly, some standard sort of takeaways that MSPs can look at and consider. I'll pass it over to you, Jamie. Maybe work through your 38 years, is it, in MSP land?
Jeez, please. Oh, I am going a lot greater, that's for sure. Yeah, look, thanks so much, Adam. Great to be here, and thanks for everybody for joining today's talk. As I say, we're keen to make sure we impart some gold nuggets along the way. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm CEO of eNerds MSP in Australia. That's 55 staff now, 5,000 plus devices under management, and still growing quite nicely, which is good. And out the side of eNerds, we commercialized some customer experience technology into Invarosoft about 5 or 6 years ago now, and we've been scaling that SaaS business, and we're going to be introducing some new things we're doing today, so that'll be of interest to everybody. But yeah, really excited to be part of it.
Just that's all organic, right? The 55 staff, 5,000 plus all endpoint, no acquisitions along the way, so all steady.
Yeah, no acquisitions. I mean, arguably that's slow growth, I would have thought, 24 years. So we started in 2000, if that wasn't clear. So yeah, but it's all been organic, and it is a bit unusual. I don't think many get to that size organically. You typically will see it through acquisition and roll-ups and stuff like that. So, but yes, it did take 24 years. So these businesses aren't exactly easy to super scale or anything like that. But
nice to be there now, no doubt.
It does feel good, I have to say. I do see a lot of rhetoric out there saying, "Oh, big is bad." I'm like, no, that's not true. Yeah,
I think big is beautiful. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So let's kick it off. Okay, This is an interesting slide. This is from this year. Okay, so brand new information that we dug up. And what was interesting, while I was at Autotask, I remember this, our CEO, Mark Catini at the time, presenting this from a decade or so ago. And it was always around 160 bill, roughly that, and growing nicely, sort of a 12% growth year on year. And then you look at where we are now, and I was trying to unpack what could be causing the insane compound growth that's just going to be sort of acting as a tailwind for everybody here in this market. And you just think the number of, I guess, some macro items of people losing their jobs in the thousands at the big tech. One, the new technology is making it very easy to start new companies. And the benefit of everybody here and the value that everybody can provide is it just helps all these other new companies that are going to be growing just focus on what they're there to serve their customers for. And you guys take away all the tech complexity that resides. Jamie, in your lens, is there anything you want to add to that?
There's also talk, you see it around Reddit and all that sort of stuff about the future of our industry and, you know, where does our role lie, especially as technology gets a little, it becomes sassified with everything. And the reality is I'm a non-technical MSP founder and I don't see anything has changed since 2000. And I doubt much is going to change then in terms of the overall business model and why we exist and the value we provide. So there is just a point where it just becomes too hard and technical people struggle with this sometimes, but non-technical people like me, arguably you, Adam, in more of the sales role, like we just want to do what we do and we don't want to have to fuss about the technology. And so that's why accountants will always have a job and lawyers always have. And I think it's the same for us. We have to adapt to the new technology that's there. But that's probably why the market will always grow and grow and grow, because it's just the need will always be there for people that know what they're doing. So
there's been talk down here of big telcos sort of buying up and or being the national provider and everybody else, and it's a race to the bottom in terms of cost. And I know that in our world down here, there's some big players that have attempted that and never sort of achieved it. And even MSPs are reselling their stuff and we're worried and all the rest of it about competing. But at the end of the day, I think more MSPs will obviously grow and keep going, and others will start their own. But it's such a healthy market. This is the sort of thing that you really want to be playing in, like where you're actually spending all your effort and time. But we look to break this down. So with big opportunity, naturally, there's so many moving parts that come around to it. Jamie, do you want to open this slide up, and I'll maybe take the last couple of points.
Yeah, there's a bit of research here that's done by the guys, and certainly the first point of the fact that most MSPs are quite small, there's stats from Autotask and ConnectWise a few times over the last 5 years. So they've done surveys, and interestingly, the stats were actually almost identical twice. So they both did surveys, and they were asking the same questions. And so 80% of MSPs globally are 3 million revenue and below, and 60% are 1 million and below. So it is a sea of small businesses in that sense. And so I guess interesting to understand that. I think the key is to start to get a more of a mature operational mindset and start to kind of look at your service delivery methodology as your next evolution. Most people think of their stack. What tools am I using to run the engine? However, I think it's the softer side of the engagement. So how you do account management, how you do advisory, how you do onboarding, how you do customer experience, and these sort of things that doesn't get spoken about a lot. And that when customers are looking to change, that's the key. So yeah, it's interesting. 122 clients on average. We've got 150 to put it in perspective. I've noticed over time, as you get a bit bigger, you just get a slightly larger client size. So you might not actually super scale the number of clients, but if you've doubled or tripled the size of those clients, that's what correlates to a bigger revenue there. And of course, using a huge amount of tools, like what are you seeing? You would be seeing this as well in terms of so many tools and vendors, and certainly the vendor side of the resale side of an MSP, Adam.
Sorry, we just had a question. Can people see the screen? Okay. You can see the presentation.
So Colin can see it.
Yeah, Colin can see it. Sorry, Jamie, can you repeat that?
No, that's okay. Yeah, so no, just getting towards the end of a couple of those points there. Obviously, a lot of tools that SaaS tools generally.
Got it. Yeah, totally. We like Kaseya have even mentioned they tout that there's 17 different products and vendors that people are working with. We've got partners that do up and around that number, and we've got many that have consolidated around specific distributors who are reselling sort of tons and tons and tons of different things. What I look at more so, one thing is the complexity around the vendor count, sure. In what you're reselling and solving problems, definitely. You don't want too many, you want the right amount. The way we look at it is how many unique services do you have listed out in your PSA? And typically about 60% of them roll up, 60, 65, 70% of them are going to be aligned to your Microsoft, especially with NCE, different billing frequencies, all the rest of it. It's just a volume to that. But when we're looking at MSPs, yes to vendor count, but it's always an 80-20 rule in terms of where you're spending your money, and which are the 2 to 3 of those 17 or 4 maybe, which are the 2 to 3 which are the biggest challenges. Normally, if you can knock those over and align a pretty solid process around it, the others typically fall in line. But the volume, having the right number of unique services that you actually need and use, I think is the bigger knock-on effect of sort of vendor sprawl, and that leaks into the PSAs. One of the things that we've seen from even before we had a product, okay, 4+ years ago, when we were doing things completely manual for our first couple of customers, was if you are reconciling things on a monthly basis from a somewhere portal report and something, and you're lining it up to your systems to bill out, 5 of every 100 lines just won't be in there, won't be getting billed out. And most of the time, probably 60% of them are tied to customer rings up, upgrades or cancel something. Admin finance do their thing from a PSA perspective, stop the billing, great. It's not then switched off in the vendor portals. And it's just, though, there's a plethora of sort of billing risks that can be tidied up. But we often see every $10,000, pick your currency, but $10,000 of services revenue that you're reselling. Once it's largely optimized and you're not missing anything, there's somewhere between an extra $500 to $700 of extra cash flow that will be coming in per $10,000. It scales weirdly well, big, small, in between. So let's dive into today's goal. At the bottom of it is, like, we want to give some key takeaways that as founders of software vendors, targeting one very specific problem each, and then over time you branch out into many more. And Jamie's got some cool new stuff that they're working on. We've got a very unique lens of seeing hundreds of MSPs, if not thousands, actually, over the course of our time in the space. And there's just some patterns that we've noticed that we want to try and elevate and see where you can take them away. Jamie, you go through the first 2, very much aligned to yourself, and then I'll jump in for 3 and 4 here.
Yeah, look, it's interesting in terms of the evolution of the Invarosoft platform. We started out in customer experience, and then we sort of got pushed by the market and then by competition to build a whole bunch of stuff that probably wasn't in the original go-to-market. And it's just shed light on the fact that there's just so many tools out there. Operational tools is what I'm talking about. So not the stuff that you resell, but the things that you need or may need to run your business. And if we draw a line back to the last stat, that most MSPs are intrinsically quite small, you don't actually have budget to buy all these tools anyway. So then you end up picking and choosing and half the time not implementing them properly. So there is a lot going on in the MSP space where, you know, there's lots of tools being built, and we're an example of that, of course, but hopefully what we're doing is slightly different and is adding some value there, of course. But and certainly in some certain areas, there has been monopolistic opportunities where certain vendors become the only ones doing certain things. And unfortunately, in monopolies, what happens in monopolies is often there's not a lot of evolution in terms of the product, and also price goes up. So consolidation of tool sets is going to become more and more of a thing. I think you'll see in the market. Kaseya, to their credit, good, bad, or ugly, whatever your viewpoint on them, they've bought everybody and they're trying to consolidate. They're trying to reduce the price and all that sort of stuff. And at least they're trying to attempt that. Whether they're executing perfectly or not, I guess, is another question. But consolidation of the market and these tools, I think, is going to happen more and more often. So it'll be interesting to get some feedback on what we're trying to do. But certainly with 3 and 4, Adam,
Yeah, totally.
About that.
Yeah, we look at automation as being having the right level, like a responsible amount. If the system can elevate and make your team make the right decisions quickly, have source of truth information that they can act on in the best interest of customer and your own business, that to us is far, far, far stronger than just blind automation between a couple of systems. There's especially with infinite permutations of the way AutoTask, ConnectWise, other have been configured over time. And one of the things that we will drill into, we'll show you some very specific ways in which you can think about uncovering quality control issues within your MSP. And oftentimes it stems from are your customers asking you questions and querying invoices that are going out to you? That's a problem. And the other problem is that you want to try and understand, is it more on that side of your month-end billing? Are we leaking revenue? One problem, and the other one is customer questions coming back. So they're the 4 key areas that we want to work through and give you some very specific takeaways just to consider. So just in terms of intro, for those who haven't seen much of CloudOlive, and where we've got this super unique lens on this problem areas, we work with over 140 of the vendors and the distributors that go through your business on a monthly basis, okay? We take the data, we take the reports, we take the invoices, we take that information and can automatically link that back to any billing scenario you've got inside your AutoTask or ConnectWise. So the real magic source and the IP around this is taking data and standardizing it, cool, but then actually being able to apply to any unique billing scenario that you've got inside of your business. And there's so many complexities at the edge case. Oh, this one customer's got this edge case for whatever reason or sold in a specific way. Just give us the data and CloudOlive can just take care of the rest of it. That's really where we want to try to sit. And Jamie, talk us through your very busy schedule, working two jobs.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, for those who don't know, as I said earlier, we've had an MSP for a long time, and the CX platform popped out the side of that. And there were, I guess, if we go to the next slide, there's a few problems that we were trying to solve, and it sort of evolved over time. And when we first invented this client portal on the CX side of things, it was a moment in time in 2009, and I was sitting in our boardroom with a quote for 2,000 mouse pads, thinking to myself, oh my God, like, are we still at mouse pads? The iPhone had been out for a few years, we're starting to become more of an app economy, and I just couldn't get my head around how everyone is going to use these mouse pads. So the mouse pad would have our phone number, branding, and our email address on it for contact details. And when people outsource to you, you're not in their office, so you kind of need to give them things so that they know who to call and where to call. And it just seemed very inefficient, and I just couldn't see how they would ever get used. And then you'd have a very poor distribution. If you had 1,000 people, I just couldn't see how all 1,000 would have that. And so essentially the early days of Invarosoft that we built internally at eNerds was a digital mouse pad. And we were trying to solve the customer experience problem. We were trying to solve a productivity problem by not getting the correct ticket information through email support. So all of that was going through our heads. And nothing has really changed. Like, just so you know, there's still a tremendous opportunity around the CX side. I'm absolutely smashing new business at the moment in eNerds because 97% of MSPs still think phone and email, specifically email's a good channel to come in, right? And to give basically clients no visibility over their tickets or your branding or onboarding and offboarding forms, Office 365 reports, and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, we're sort of challenging people to think about your support channels as you see there. And this is where I basically like shooting fish in a barrel signing up clients. I've signed up $60,000 a month in new MRR support only. So that's not Office 365, it's not internet, it's not any of that stuff that you resell. we're just destroying it because I understand that clients, when they're looking for a new IT provider, are essentially looking for a step up in their service experience. And I'm sorry to tell you, if you say to that new client going, oh, don't worry, we'll replace the mouse pads and stickers with our email and phone on it that you've got with those guys with our mouse pads and stickers, it's not a step up. It's a step across, right? So you need to be having in your sales argument all these different things that you're doing to demonstrate a service experience step up and an operational maturity in these areas. And we've been banging on about this forever on the CX side, and you'll see in a sec that we're sort of adding some new stuff to the table with new categories. But on this category, there's only 3% of the market that do something. I think I see some partners or some names that I know potentially still there. Scott Clark, if it's the Scott Clark I know. And these guys have been early adopters, but only 3% are doing it. So that means every time, I roll up to do a new business presentation to V-Nerds, I know 97% of the time, like they're just not going to be delivering the same message. And so there's the new business side of differentiating and understanding truly what clients want when they're looking to outsource. It's got nothing to do with your stack. They want to know you're going to tick the box on cybersecurity, but they don't need an in-depth on all the freaking tools you use to do that. And the other side is this operational and automation side of things. And so it often gets missed. As you're scaling an MSP, you want to get the correct ticket information the first time. You don't want to have to triage every ticket. And so we obviously offer an opportunity to get the perfect ticket coming through. And one of the things that we challenge people to think about is that you generally will have phone and email as your support channels. And if you want to go to the next level of the next century of the world, then you should indeed consider removing email and replacing it with a CX client portal solution, whether it's ours or one of the others. It doesn't really matter. But that is what clients' expectations are these days. And from a ticketing automation perspective, it's enabled us to do things in our MSP like auto allocation and load balancing of tickets. So tickets come in, we know they're level 1, level 2, level 3. We know our level 1, 2, 3 engineers, and they get shipped to the right team, and then load balance to see who's got the least amount. So all these things are possible when you get the right data. And for whatever reason, the market hasn't deemed at scale that it is important to put client portals in front and do this type of stuff. They fight me on it. They fight the logic of getting rid of email. But I will say to you that the users of your clients are like me. I'm non-technical, and we want easy. We are already living in an app economy. We're on iPhones and Androids and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, don't be fearful of that, and just try and put yourself as a gold nugget of today in the client's seat and look backwards that way. What would they really want? How would they like to interact with you in that sense? And whilst you don't want to do what the client says, I'm not suggesting that, but you certainly want to be in the game. And email is like the 1990s, 2000s. So anyway, next slide there, Adam. And so where are we going? As a final comment about Invarosoft, we got pushed to build a whole bunch of stuff. And long story short, we thought, well, are we going to be a jack of all trades, master of none, and just have a bunch of features in a CX platform? Or should we actually help MSPs with all these stack considerations? And we did a survey a wee while ago, and we asked the market, look, if you could get some of these smaller tools under the one hood and you're able to consolidate, would you do it? And I kind of thought, oh, well, maybe 50-50 would say yes. So it'll be interesting to see what people on this one think about that. But it was 97% said, yeah, I'd want to consolidate. And then when I asked them why, they just said, look, too many vendors, too many portals, complications with invoicing, complications with training engineers. So if an engineer leaves even, then you've got like 6 products you need to train them in. So what we've got here is Warranty Wizard, which is a replacement for ScalePad Warranty, Lifecycle Manager. Alert Centric is a replacement for Backup Radar. Time Master is a replacement for TimeZest. HappySat is your CSAT and MPS feedback module. VCIO Hero is a QBR tool. And of course, you've got CX, the Invarosoft CX platform. And what we're doing differently is that we're bundling them so that you can get more for less. So when you looked at this webinar, it's like, how can you save 50%? Well, we're doing a pricing and packaging play here. We're going to help you get away from these monopolistic situations and get more for less. For those that are Invarosoft partners, lucky you, you're going to get all of this for a thank you for being existing customers and going on the journey with us on the CX side of things. So this is a big way we're going to help with the stack consolidation and reducing your stack costs and complexity. And we're going to be adding more products. So we want to build products that you ordinarily would buy off the shelf, put them in here, throw them in a bundle, and basically just get everything for kind of like the price of one product in that sense. So yeah, it should be interesting. I think we had a question there.
Just some partner love back at you, DJ.
Very good. Thank you, Kurt. Appreciate that, mate. Yeah, so there you go. So that's what we've been working on. Now, the final comment on this is that we'll be launching this in a few weeks. We were waiting on some API credentials from a particular vendor, and that did take a while. They're quite large. You can imagine who that was potentially. So we've got those now. We're ready to rumble and aiming to launch this thing in a few weeks. So stay tuned.
That's exciting. And Jamie, just to give everyone a bit of a visual in terms of bringing your customers closer from I suppose, a modern perspective, and likewise enhancing tons of
interesting. Like looking at that there, if you look at the little app on the right and then the client portal and everything else, there's two things that I do in my new business presentations. One is, firstly, I sell the why. I copied Simon Sinek and sell the why, then the how, then the what. So you talk about peace of mind with the why, like I'm selling peace of mind, business continuity, and cost containment, those sorts of things. And then when we talk about the how, that's where you start to show this sort of stuff. And it's not just CX, it's also other things that you're doing and talking about your ticketing and all these sort of things. But this is a visual thing. And what we actually do, bearing in mind I also do Invarosoft, when you're presenting this to a customer, you're showing them the portal and the app and how they can log a ticket, see their Office 365 reporting and all that sort of stuff. And so visually, when you've got your brand there and you're showing them all this sort of stuff, it's just memorable. The other thing you should also, so one, you should do in a sales presentation if you've got this type of tool set. The other thing as well, and it doesn't matter which tool you use, but your QBR tool, which of course we have, I show them that as well. Because you've got to understand, clients want to know how that service experience is going to be a step up. And these are examples of that. They're visual examples of that. It's not just waffle coming out of your mouth. You're actually showing them what a potential report, traffic light report would look like, how the recommendations, how the roadmap's going to look. So from a buyer's perspective, they're going, oh, okay, if I pick these guys, this is what I'm going to get. Now, I know a lot of Invarosoft partners and people that use other CX solutions don't make a big effort. Some do, and good on them, but a lot do not. So they've actually done the right thing by getting a CX solution. Then they don't put it in their new sales presentation and talk it up and show how this is going to be amazing. So if you're one of those people that aren't potentially doing that, food for thought, because that's the sort of stuff that enables you to kind of shoot fish in a barrel and sign clients up with ease.
Yeah, very good. So we've been through the tool bloat, the sprawl, the problems that's caused by that, and then some really innovative ways that are either there now and or coming in the not too distant future in terms of consolidating, especially around internal cost and operational efficiency. The next one for us is the automation and billing blind spots. And so we kind of bucket this into month-end billing, right? Why is this hard? Why do people not enjoy and or want to try and outsource it or offshore it or give it to somebody else? Why is it that it's just not an enjoyable part of an MSP? Certainly not many anyway. It's because it's really, really fragmented. It's extremely complex. I still believe it's the most fragmented part of what the MSP is having to do. 17 vendors, 17 different layouts of reports, X number of different portals that you're having to dive into. They bill in arrears, they bill in advance, you name it, all of those different things. And then you're sat in the middle trying to align it. So little questions like, if you want to bill on the 1st, but your distributor doesn't invoice you until the 6th, what do you do? What's the right way and actually to make sure that you're not leaking revenue or charging the wrong counts? And there's the simplest way we've certainly found is just sell the way you buy. The simplest way, if it's got 10 units here, put 10 units there. That's not the reality of real world. Clients have specific needs. There's tons of MSPs that look to either group them into a single line item. And one of there's a couple of questions you will always ask when you're going down that path of setting up certainly the PSAs, the systems out there. thinking about it from the customer side, do we want to show the customer one line item, or do we want to show them many line items? That's a decision point that needs to be made. Coming back from that is the same question for your own PSA. Do we split them out? Even if it's one line going to the customer, do you still break them apart? If you've got one line in your PSA only, and that's obviously one line for the customer, it's impossible to accurately get profitability or accurate profitability reporting around your cost per customer. If you've got 10 people, but there's 12 of this service coming in, what do you do with that? What do you do with those extra two? How do you account for them? So one of the ways that we think about this is, regardless of your MSP, like a double lens on this billing challenge. Okay, so a key thing to think about is, what's your source of truth per service line that's going through your business? So every single line item that your customer sees on an invoice, ideally, is verified before they actually goes out the door. Ideally, right? 100% of them, ideally. Then we go back to the 80-20. Hey, 20% of them don't move, or maybe a little bit more for some people. So it's like, okay, let's isolate the ones that often do vary, and all the clients that are a little bit tricky than the others. So from a source of truth perspective, if you're an MSP that goes, right, we're literally going to bill whatever is active in the vendor portal at a certain time in the month, or from the relevant invoices that they're getting, that you're getting charged for. That's the way to stop revenue leakage in a very simple form. If you can do that consistently and cleanly, whatever's active, you on bill, great. Okay, that's one way to do things. What that doesn't solve is, there's 10 humans at an end client side, but a technician forgot to switch off 2 or 3 or 5 of these things, or even one of these things, and you on bill 11 of a peripheral service. That's what your client is going to pick up the phone and say, hey, there's an extra $4 on this invoice. What, can you talk us through what that is? And it just sucks for everyone. It sucks for everyone involved. That little, it's such a common challenge, right? And then there's an MSP that we're speaking with who, from that point on, the end client was asking for a monthly report prior to the invoice with explanations of what's changed from the month. And they were 15 staff at the end client. Like, that's just what you want to avoid at all costs.
And often what happens, I'll just say, Adam, is that the client doesn't notice for like 6 months, and then they notice and go, hang on a sec. And now you've got this drama that it looks like you've been doing the wrong thing for like quite a long period of time.
Right.
So it's
yeah. And they naturally dig into it, right? So the other way to think about it is, like, what would you do in the situation where there's 10 business premium? Keep it simple. There's 10 business premium. There's 10 humans at that environment. They're all assigned licenses. But there's 11 units of SaaS or a 365 backup, or something that is a user-based product that you're purchasing. Do you bill 11 or do you bill 10? Do you have a decision point across your entire business for that? Where would you normally go? Because that's going to be a very, very common scenario quite often. We'll walk you through a way in which you can very quickly, at a bird's eye view, give your team access to that data from a quality control standpoint very, very soon. So we look at it at a double lens, regardless of what you use as a source of truth. If it's 10 business premium, so we're just going to bill for everything else 10, you still want to double check your vendor invoices to make sure that you're not leaking revenue or things aren't getting switched off. So there's 2 problems that need to be solved there. And we just intersect in the middle of that and can help arrive at a solution. So where we sit in the stack, okay, is you've got all the vendors and distributors up the top. And there was a question that came through around, do we do Paxate as a distributor? And 100%, that's probably the more, these days, probably the most common distributor from a Microsoft perspective, and all their other products. But we aim to say any vendor that you're reselling, anyone, if you can get it into an export of some report, into some form of look of an Excel, we'll be able to standardize that data. No manipulation on your side, drags into CloudOlive, and then the magic just happens. So if you've got those edge cases of split billing, single tenant, multi-company, or the other way around, multi-products going to one line item, et cetera, like any of those items and nuances, data comes in, just standardizes and pulls it back into your Autotask or ConnectWise, and then just a normal process. So we very much sit on the front and can verify the accuracy around underbilling, overbilling. A big one that was super important to roll out, super hard to find actually, is Like when your price change from a supplier 1 month to the next, that's very rarely spotted in month one. It's often spotted when there's a big audit or you're canceling or something's going on at some point in time. I mean, you realize you just haven't been making the money that you were anticipating or thinking you were. And this is a bit of a look and a feel. So X number of vendors that you're going to have that you can work with, be that user-based, device-based, you know, any of your suppliers, your distributors, just bring them through the product, ideally every month. But again, the 80-20 rule really does ring true here. It's like, what's the biggest challenge that you've got? And one of the offers that will be provided at the end, there'll be a QR code that you can book in with us. If you've got a vendor that you're reselling, any distributor as well, like normally the proof of concepts that we do are typically around Microsoft and making sure your margins are right, your costs are right, everyone's getting billed, nothing's getting like double billed, any of those things for any of the distributors. Like run it through the system and actually have a look. Like we will do a white glove service to actually just say, hey, here's an audit for you. Look what we've learned. And in general, there's going to be somewhere around about 5 to 7% uplift that we would anticipate that you would likely find. And then it's up to you if you want to automate it the following month. Likewise with any other supplier. But this is the view that management typically look at and can decide whether or not they jump in and have a look at underbilling, overbilling, or other. And from and that piece of it solves the revenue leakage. If you query, you're worried about, you lay awake at night and you go, oh, did we bill for X, Y, Z? That module there solves that problem flawlessly. It's awesome, right? The other piece of it is...
I'll just jump in. One of the Martins just asked you, does it need the PSA set up or can you work straight with Xero?
Yeah, for now, it's the two pair. Like our vision of this is to go broader in time, but we want to build something truly unique around Autotask ConnectWise today. Just offer like a flawless experience for our users in those two systems. So Martin, for now, it does require the PSA. In time, there will be a Xero interface. We've got a long list of Halo partners that are sort of questioning when we're going to roll it out there as well. We would love the view of disties, vendors, everything coming through your PSA, but likewise having a feed and the data from Xero, and just have like a green line across the board of everything, like the full cycle in one view. At some point, we will look to roll that out and do that type of thing. But for now, it requires the PSA. That's the data we're reading and leveraging. So thanks for the question there.
If you actually have that data in Synchro, you said that you're on Synchro, but are you saying that none of that data is in Synchro and it's all in Xero? Anyway,
all in Xero, yeah. So if we had Autotask ConnectWise and Xero as an integration, this thing would be perfect. There is something that we'll touch on later on that may be of use in not even in this module in this product here, but something that's on the very, very near horizon, which is if you resell Microsoft, we're going to solve problems that you're likely going to have or have now. So we talked about solving the revenue leakage piece. That's really taking vendor data and lining it up and working out why it's different or why it's off in tons of different metrics. The other piece is how well do we have our onboarding, offboarding, and volume of unique services that we resell in check within our PSA. And this is what we're looking at here. So CloudOlive groupings was something we released probably 3 or so months ago. And I'd say it's been one of the most transformative, it has been the most transformative release we've ever done in the last 4 years. Partly around just the sheer simplicity. We're taking data that's inside of your Autotask or inside of your ConnectWise, grouping them into the way in which you purchase these services. Is it a user-based? Is it a light user? Is it a per device type of convention? You can have as many of these as you want, design them however you see, put all the different services in the relevant groups. And then we go, okay, if there's 10 business basic, that's my primary. That's why that little toggle has been slid across there. My essential bundle, let me know if it doesn't line up. And likewise for any of the other services, you can have multiple primaries that sum together because there's premium, annual, monthly, E1, E3. So you can sort of go, they're all my primaries. So if they're there, they're my users. We want to know the other things that are tied against them. So, and the idea here is that responsible automation, again, like we will elevate this information and give you a view where you go, oh, in that middle blue column there, it says suggested quantity. Okay, the suggested quantity here is, oh, it's currently 6. it should be 32. Okay. And that's all driven off of smarts within a specific group that's been built. And again, there's so many reasons why there's edge cases per client. There's an internal license or an internal SKU. We get that, right? It's always going to be there. But having that control, having a single place that you can leave your notes on a line by line item basis is going to be there every single month. It's getting fed direct from the API from your PSAs. This is a view which while I was at Autotask, I really thought that this was something that would help our partners, having a list of all of your services in one place, and then being able to leave your notes and being able to sort of link things together where they're typically standalone. That never came, so we built it. And this acts as a quality control that takes probably 2 minutes to set up. Literally put some services into a group and pick a primary, and then it comes to life. The feedback's been so cool that what we've heard is just like, oh, it's really highlighted this operational inefficiency in our business around offboarding, typically, is what they're seeing. But why this is important, Jamie touched on it. We're big believers of it. Thinking it from your customer's lens is the most important thing on this. Where this is what they're going to see, unless you've got it hidden in some capacity. Question from Kurt. So it's similar to a group bundle, but if you've got them broken out, like we're big believers of breaking things out into the PSA, not necessarily to show the customer that, okay, but to give you accurate reporting on customer by customer level. So it's similar to, I guess it's similar to service bundles, but it's groupings of how you're buying and then selling service types. So even if it may not necessarily be in a formal bundle itself, this will give you a bird's eye view of why are these things different? Hey, can such and such go in and have a look at why they're actually off? These should largely be the same every month.
And Kurt also asked, do you have a list of integrations on your site? He said, we looked at Gradient, but they had very limited integrations for what we use. We are best of breed, which is part of the problem. We're never going to be an IT complete shop because I think half the sales stack. But yeah, so
all good. That's just been shared. Cool. So moving on here. So the piece here of being driven right. What is going to be the source of truth of these groupings now? Okay. A lot of the user-based data naturally gets fed from Microsoft, typically. Like people are typically pretty clued up in onboarding, offboarding there and putting them in security groups and all the rest of it. So what we're in the process of building now, we're in beta mode with probably half a dozen of our partners that we're testing it with, is actually taking right now we've got all the data. How can we drive the incredible granular source of truth data from via API from different systems? So the first one that we want to roll out is from Microsoft itself. So straight from Partner Center, you sort of get the headline numbers of, hey, we're buying 3 of this thing. But the other piece that you really want to know is, there's only 2 assigned users to this actual 3 units. You're getting billed for 3. There's 2 here that have been assigned. Who's assigned to it? Maybe you only actually want to bill for 1 of those. So all of a sudden we've gone from 3 as the headline number, NCE commit for a year, but there's actually 1 user within this specific email address that you can toggle in or off that needs to be tied to perhaps the user group. So now all of a sudden you're billing for 3, but the 1 is what the customer is expecting from all the other peripherals in this scenario, in this example. So we're super pumped about this, and it's really just all the complexity that's been solved over the last 4 years is now taking, how do we help simplify down the source of truth calculations that you're doing now and just standardize it, ideally across the industry, but standardize it certainly within your own MSP so everyone from sales to admin to support knows what a unit of a specific service actually equates to and means. So Jamie, a couple of key takeaways. What would you
look, I mean, obviously we still need to get our products out the door, but once you do, you'll have an opportunity to look at your internal stack and see whether or not there can be some savings there. Most of the vendors that have multiple products will sell you each one of those products individually, and of course we're going to be doing that differently. So once that happens, then I invite you to have a look at what we're doing and see where you can save. You should be able to save at least 50%, especially on the ScalePad side of things if you're a customer there. But when you look at the whole stack, all the products that we're sort of commercializing as individual products are products you can buy off the shelf. And as I say, existing partners get them, so lucky them. And new partners, there's ridiculous bundles anyway. So the whole idea is that it's a win-win-win for everybody. And certainly, well, in terms of consolidation, I guess that's the same thing. But driving performance, point three, I guess I'll just mention my part of that customer experience, just to remind you that it's such a big part of demonstrating that service experience step up. It's what clients want to see when they're changing providers, okay? And your job really should only be to figure out the sales arguments you need to prove, Your Honor, why I am the best MSP for you. It is literally like a legal argument you'd see in a courtroom, right? And the more points you can make to demonstrate that argument is what it is. And so when I sit here and say, I think I could, if you're up against me in a sales setting for a new client, you're in trouble. And it's not because I'm better at selling. I actually think, I was thinking about it the other day, it's not me personally, it's my sales argument. It's the sales argument that I put together that I think is stronger, and the results are proving that. And a big part of it's that. So yeah, just for those that don't do anything around the customer experience, and you are a phone, an email, mousepad, stickery type MSP, probably food for thought there. But over to you, Adam, for the point three.
I think the questions to ask, with just thinking about it today, would be, do you worry at all about leaking revenue? Like, is that something that everyone will have a scenario like, oh, I hadn't built, like, we had a domain from a new partner came out, hadn't built it for 5 years, right? And that's pretty extreme, but like, it happens.
Well, Adam, I'll jump in and say, guys, I had an absolute shocker about 14 years ago. I didn't know why the profitability wasn't there in eNerds, and it turned out, and I didn't even figure it out, so I can't even claim that I figured it out myself. We were underbilling the number of devices we were charging. So I know most people probably wouldn't get it to the point that I did, but I had no idea, because as I scaled, it just got a bit unwieldy, and we weren't super efficient in this area. And it got up to apples with apples. So charging the number of desktops, not changing the rate or anything like that, just charging the number of desktops we actually were managing, or desktops, laptops. We were $42,000 a month out. $42,000 a month out. What's the maths on that? Like $500,000? Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. So when you scale, if you don't get processes like this right, which I hadn't, obviously, it can just exacerbate a problem. And then it becomes this nightmare to try and reel it back in, because then we had to go to every client and go, oh, whoopsie daisies, like, you know, and that took 3 or 4 months to unravel all of that and get it back on track.
Yeah, we've heard some shocking stories every day. We see them. But just if that's something that you think about and you don't want to think about it, that may be worth solving. Okay, if you're like, no, we're actually got that pretty under control, we're pretty happy, we've got pretty tight controls on, off, and all the rest, then great, cool. Have a think about the other problem. Do your customers query the invoices because of that 10 and 11 scenario? Okay, that we talked about earlier on, because that's normally what they're asking question from. Why is this thing 1 unit out, 2 units out? If that's the problem, or if you go, do you know, we actually have both. If you've got both, stop the revenue leakage first, get that under control. If you don't, then that's always just a waving tail that's going to keep hurting you in down the line. They're the two questions I would say. Just have a think about, and if you want to talk through it with us, this is how you can book it in. So the Megan at CloudOlive.com email address there, she's actually based in Europe and works for all of our European, UK, Ireland, European, as well as the North American base from a new business and conversation perspective. So, and obviously you can get in touch with me with Adam at CloudOlive.com. That QR code will book it into her or I, whoever's got the availability. Just to say thanks as well for everyone who's been on the call. If there's even one single vendor, one distributor, one something that you're like, oh God, we would just like it audited. Just tell us what it looks like. How accurate is it? get in touch with us. We'll do a full proof of concept with you, run the system, see how it's going to work for you. At the very least, get that bulletproof, have peace of mind around that. Switch on all the groupings, see what the quality control, onboarding, offboarding piece looks like. Just run the system and get a good feel for it. And then if you want to automate it afterwards, then it makes sense to bring all the other vendors in as well. Okay. But that's our offer today, just to say thanks for obviously taking time out of your very busy days.
Yeah, and just to echo that, thanks so much for your time, guys. If you want to reach out to Invarosoft, the QR code goes to invarosoft.com/book demo, and then you've got the sales email there that goes to the team. And if you were interested in our platform, you just happen to be, you've already sort of down the line of wanting to do something now, I would do it sooner rather than later, because the old deal and the old pricing, which was, it is slightly different. The bundling still saves you a fortune, but we are changing it a little bit. So if you want to get in now, obviously get on with that, and you'll get locked in for all the new products we're building, and also other ones that are to come as well. So thank you, guys. Really appreciate your time.
And appreciate the questions as well, everyone. That was good.
Yes, good interaction. Well done, team. Go, Kurt. I think Kurt deserves a medal. If there's a medal for the highest contributor of the webinar, then you just got that, mate. We'll give you a virtual high five. Boom. There you go.
There you go, Kurt.
Oh, he gave himself a medal.
No, that was me. I gave him that.
Oh, that was you. Nice. Brilliant. All right. Well, look, thank you, guys. We'll leave it there, and wish you well for the rest of the day. Let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jamie.
Take care. Cheers, Adam.
Bye. Cheers, guys.